Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Tuesday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's Tuesday. That means good old Buddy Martin will be joining us. You can check his show out, The Buddy Martin Show, Monday through Friday on Facebook Live. Second portion of this show, we're going to have Andy Staples talking college football, talking Gators. Former Gator walk-on, worked for Sports Illustrated, now works for The Athletic. He'll be joining us as well. But we got a lot to talk about today. The Rays go up 2-0 against the Houston Astros. The Braves get the first win in the NLCS against the Dodgers last night. And the Saints have a miraculous comeback. The Chargers somehow find ways to lose games like Kentucky. Let's go straight to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by Buddy Martin from The Buddy Martin Show. Good morning, Buddy. How are you?
Morning, Shane. How are you? I'm a happy man. I got my hat on this morning. And as you know, I just didn't put it on yesterday. What a ball game yesterday. I know it's football season. My first love. I can't not recognize the Tampa Bay Rays, who are playing amazing. They call them the amazing Mets. These are amazing Rays. Big win last night. Yeah,
it was. They're a fun team to watch. You know, it's funny because, you know, buddy, I love baseball. I played it growing up till I came to college and used to follow it a little bit, don't really follow it anymore till playoffs come around. I mean, majority of the entire country couldn't name one player that plays for the Tampa Bay Rays.
Well, yeah, that's true. But I'll give you a few to remember. At least, which is the Gator himself. Last night, Mike Zeno on a home run, an insurance home run, and Rosarina, who's an exciting player. And this guy, Margot, can't even speak English. Manuel Margot, what an incredible catch he made, falling over the rail into a concrete pit and held on to the ball, and he hit a home run too, two-run homer. So there's some good players on there and teams and names that folks are going to learn if they have it, because they're 2-up against Houston with a chance to win the ALCS and go to the World Series, and they're just the kind of team. I'll tell you what it's like. What's missing from the Florida defense right now, among other things, is what the Rays have. To me, and that's heart. Man, this team has got heart. I wish the Florida defense had more heart.
Well, maybe so, but we're missing a lot more than heart. Trust me. So, buddy, let's talk about it. I think you wrote a column on Todd Grantham that you thought he ought to be fired. Tell me why, because I totally disagree with that.
Yeah, no,
I totally disagree with it.
Well, that's what the headline says, but I said, but don't do it now. And I gave.
Why would you do it?
Well, listen to me, the column is 6 reasons why he would be fired.
Okay, I want to hear them.
And, number one, the numbers are just appalling. They're awful. I know.
Okay, hang on. The numbers are appalling, but the numbers are appalling for every school in America except Georgia and Clemson.
Okay, you gonna let me finish this, or you're going to knock down one every time? Let me finish up my list. Will you first, please? I know you're the host, but let me get to my list. Numbers are appalling, and I won't go through them. You know, sometimes the defense appears to be so lost the players don't know where to line it up. Kellen Mond could have worn a dinner jacket, white dinner jacket, not been touched, no pressure. What does DBU stand for, by the way, and why? If the right guys are not on the field, no matter the experience, it's time to make changes in the lineup. And let's don't beat around the bush about the poor play of certain players. And I hate to call guys out, but Marco Wilson, he's not right. He's not right. He shouldn't be on the field right now. So those are the numbers. Those are the reasons why most people would say. Now, I say I don't think he should be fired, but I could understand the frustration of the fans and the people for those reasons. And when I say that, I'm not recommending that he be hired. I'm a Grantham fan. You know that. I have been for a long time. But these are obvious points that we can't ignore, Shane.
Okay, so I'm going to argue and disagree with you here, buddy. That's the great thing about our sports talk radio. You have your opinion, I have mine.
Yeah.
I told you back in August, what was the weak link of this football team? Defensive line.
I think you said it was a quarterback position.
It's the defensive line.
You didn't play Luke more.
Yeah. Well, Luke could throw for a ton of yards in today's football. Trust me.
He could.
The defensive line, we're small there. I'm going to disagree with you on Marco Wilson. Marco Wilson is an NFL player. Did you see, I'm just asking your opinion, did you see any receiver running wide open against Marco Wilson?
I saw one running down the field, and I saw the ball go up, and I saw Wilson go for the interception.
Okay.
And by taking it for a touchdown. I saw that.
Okay.
Let me finish. I saw them attacking Marco Wilson, and there's a reason why. That's what I saw.
No. Here's the thing. Buddy. We all love Kyle Trask, yes or no?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Do we love Kyle Pitts? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. When Kyle Trask makes a throw into double coverage and Kyle Pitts goes up and makes a play, we as Gator fans go, what a great throw, what an unbelievable catch. Okay? Well, sometimes offense is better, they make a better play than the defense. And in my opinion, you go back and you go watch. Marco Wilson had great coverage on about every one of those plays that were thrown on him. You got to tip your hat to Kellen Mond and to the receivers and to Jimbo. The play call was phenomenal. The scheme that they put on the deep touchdown to Marco, which he probably should have knocked it down. It was a perfect throw, a perfect play call, and a great catch. Okay, so I look at it from both sides of the teams. I want us to be great, but our secondary is good. I will argue with anybody in America. I told you in August, the problem with this defense is it's not an SEC defensive line.
Yeah, front forwards.
You can have Deion Sanders, you can have the greatest defenders in the world on the back end, and if your quarterback has time, he is going to shred you. It doesn't matter who it is. So, like, you have your opinion, I have mine, but Marco Wilson is an NFL corner. Plus, you got to remember, Marco Wilson is playing different positions that he has moved to the star, which is one of the hardest positions to play in the slot. Why do you think they put him there? Because he's our best player. You know, the other guys
not going to be there this
week.
I don't think he's going to start there this week.
Well, I would prefer him to be on the outside that's where he's best. But they're trying to do what's best for the team. But anyway, defensively, will we get better? I don't know. Will anybody get better in defense? I don't know. Because today's college football, you cannot stop anybody. And I said the stat yesterday on my show, and I read it to you before the show. When supposedly the greatest college football coach of all time, who has multiple national championships, who has the best players year in and year out at supposedly the best program, is dead last in forcing 3 and outs in the country, that should tell you how hard it is with the rule changes and the way college football is played today.
Okay, I'll give you that. You must have written Mullen's notes for his press conference yesterday.
No,
that's what he said.
I'm coming from a coaching perspective.
I know. I said you're talking like a coach, and I get it. I'm talking like a fan, which you have to understand. They don't see it that way. The majority.
No, I know they don't. But they have to look at it because, okay, we're good on offense. But, buddy, you got to sit back and say, okay, well, how good are we on offense? Because everybody in America now is great on offense. I love our offense, but we're not even in the top 4 in the SEC in offense. You see my point?
I'm happy with it, though.
No, where everybody is. I think everybody.
It's the kind of offense that you love, and you know, it's like I call it tennis, because every point you got a whole serve. And Brian Johnson talked about last night. It's the mentality we're in. We had a discussion before the show started about how many yards Alabama put up, gave up, etc. The thing about this offense is when you don't hold serve, if you make a critical mistake late in the game, you're screwed. And that's what happened to Malik Davis. And I wrote a column about that. And the Twitterers came after me, your favorite people, the tweets, the Twitterers, about me saying that Malik Davis lost the game. In a way, he did, but that's not what I meant. I know the defense lost the game. But I also know when you're playing in a game, and you would know this better than anybody because you've been in those track meets, last guy to get the ball wins. Jimbo got it at midfield with 4 minutes to go, and they calmly went down the field and kicked the field goal. Too bad. It's a turnover that cost them badly, but the defense was the sore thumb.
No, I mean, the defense is a sore thumb not only for the Gators, but for the Alabama Crimson Tide, for everybody pretty much in America. But yeah, the fumble by Malik killed us. But you got to look at it from the other point too. We were fortunate a couple of drives before that. What happened with A&M's offense? They fumbled the ball to us about midfield, and we go down and score. So, I try to look at it. I try to take my orange and blue glasses off, and look at the big picture of college football. I do not think our secondary is the issue at all. And I like I said, I'm going to go back to when I watched them in August in scrimmages. The thing that was glaring to me was our defensive line was small and just not very good. And I was holding my breath hoping I was wrong. But through 3 games, we ain't going to stop anybody that wants to run the football, and we can't pressure the quarterback with our front 4. It's that simple. And I don't know what we do to fix it. Honestly. Because LSU's going to throw for a bunch of yards on us, buddy. It's going to be a track meet because their quarterback's playing really well, and they got a ton of good receivers. But yeah, it's good. Florida football is going to be high scoring every game, in my opinion.
Well, that's what they've been wanting. That's what they said when Mullen came here. Let's get some offense up there. Game has changed, as you know. Good point. I just think it's it's unfortunate that the defense can't get it together right now, but they're not, as you point out, not the only group. Everybody in the General Robert Nalen, the father of SEC defense, he's turned over in his grave 1,000 times since over the weekend. What an unbelievable outcome. And what about the numbers being put up? And I don't know how you stop anybody. The only thing I say is, if the defense is broken, if that's the situation, how do you fix it?
Well, here's what I would do.
The second part of this question is, this is more difficult. If it can't be fixed, what do you do about Todd Grantham, who, by the way, I'm a fan of? Those are the questions in my mind.
I don't think Todd Grantham is a problem at all. I mean, everybody loved him last year and the year before. It's not like he woke up in College Station and figured out he can't coach anymore. We've got to get bigger dudes on the front end. But here's what I would do defensively. I don't coach college football, but I watch a lot of college football, and basically this is what I would do. I would line up in a 3, maybe a 4-man line, although you got to worry about teams running it down your throat. But I would just play soft coverage like teams are doing against Mike Leach's team.
Drop 8.
Drop 8 and let people just march their way down the field, because the percentages are against you to drive the football 75 to 80 yards.
Well, that's not new. That's the old bend but don't break theory from 30 years ago.
That's fine. But here's the thing. If they have to kick field goals, great. But to go 75, 80 yards, the percentages are so small, because what happens? You may get a holding call. You may have a left guard jump off sides. Quarterback may take a sack. He may throw an interception. But you're not going to give up a bunch of big plays that way. People may not like that, but that's what I would do right now. And then every now and then maybe heat up the quarterback. But, it's not a Gator problem is what I'm trying to say. Watch other games, and you will see that nobody can stop anybody. It is just unbelievable to me how the game has changed.
Yeah. All right, let me ask you a question now. How do you figure out this landscape of the SEC? Because you got to ultimately, Mullen talk about this. Yeah, we don't know how good or bad Arkansas is. We misjudged some teams. If we had to group it, if this was the Final Four and you had to say bubble, last out, first out, whatever, here's how I would do it. First out, it's got to be obviously Mississippi State and Vandy. Vandy game postponed because of the COVID. Big break for Missouri. You get a week off for Florida. And then you got the bubble teams. Tennessee, Kentucky, Auburn, Arkansas, LSU, Ole Miss, Missouri, and South Carolina. Those are all the sort of so-called bubble teams. I'm not sure who will emerge, but please don't come at me, folks, and try to sell me Tennessee and try to sell me Miami, try to sell me these teams that everybody sells every year. So those are the bubble teams. Now, the best 4, clearly Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and A&M. Who knows how much? A&M, people are saying, could skate now. They may go the rest of the way without losing the game, because the schedule's easy. Florida's got a couple of games they got to suddenly worry about, not the least of which is Arkansas. We know about Georgia, LSU, who knows? So you get out of this thing alive. If you can get out with 8 wins, you got a shot. If you there will be a lot of teams right at 8 or 7. So back in the day, 8 wins was good. It was a good record. Today, 8 wins is good. how do you see the landscape, and how do you see that? I'm going to ask you this tonight more in depth on my show when you're on.
Well, we only have 2 undefeated teams in the conference right now, and when we're talking next week this time, there's only going to be one. It's either going to be Alabama or Georgia.
Who do you like?
So I like Alabama. I just think they're the most complete offensive football team in the country. Their passing game is ridiculous right now, and they can run the football, and they're at home. But I think it's going to be a heck of a game. But, Florida still controls their own destiny as long as we take care of the teams before the Georgia game. And, Georgia is extremely athletic on the defensive side of the ball. Their hands above everybody else. They're the only team that's playing defense in the SEC. And Clemson's the only other team playing defense in America, them and Georgia.
We're not playing anybody, though. That's different.
Well, they don't. There's nobody in the ACC. I called the woodshed beating. I mean, they could have beaten Miami 50-10 if they wanted. Mm-hmm. It was just Miami is not back. Trust me. No. But it's. I think A&M. It's easy to sit here. We all thought Mississippi State would make a run after they upset LSU, but we now know what LSU is. But I really do think A&M. Their tough part of their schedule, they're done with.
Yeah,
they could easily go 9-1.
They could
and slip into the playoffs. So those are the 4 teams that have a chance to go to Atlanta. LSU is done over there. Auburn is done over there. Auburn is a bad football team.
Auburn just turned bad. They were lucky that was a game they got gifted. That call they made that was a fumble, and I think Arkansas should have gotten it.
We got a Facebook Live comment here brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. Michael says, Shane, I'm predicting 6-4 this season. The defense can improve, but these players can't get bigger, stronger, or quicker. The season is what it is. We're not going to lose 4 games, people. Here's the thing. We may not play great defense, which I don't think we're going to, but doesn't mean you're not going to beat the other teams that can't play defense at all. Missouri's giving up a ton of points. They're scoring points. LSU's giving up a ton of points, but they're scoring a bunch of points. So we're going to beat those teams because, I trust our offense a little bit more than those.
Got to fix the defense, though, Shane. Got to fix the defense.
But my point is, buddy, you can't fix it because of the style people are playing today. It's impossible to stop people. I had Jerry Odom on, who's a college coach. They don't play until the spring a couple of weeks ago, and I got him on specifically so he could explain how difficult it is to stop offenses these days. And it was great information. I mean, the rules are ridiculous for the offense, buddy. It favors the offense. All the rules do. And it's hard to play defense. And I don't know how you fix it. Yeah, it's not really fixing it. It's just, like I said, trying to limit and keeping people under 24 points. That should be our goal the rest of the year.
Well, it's going to be tough. That's for sure. Too bad about Trask. I felt bad for him going in there with all his family and playing really well and not coming out with a W in a situation where that was just once in a lifetime story and he didn't get it done. And it's a tough loss. And here's the thing about that loss. You can't dwell on it, but the fact is that's a winnable game. That's a game that could have gone over your W side. Now you got at least 2 other games that could go into the L side, which could be 3 losses, which would put Florida out of the race. So the Georgia game is obvious. And quite frankly, I'm not really sure yet about LSU. We'll see. And you can't mail in Arkansas and Tennessee anymore.
Well, LSU has athletes. I don't care what the record is.
Yeah.
Their quarterback is going to throw. He's going to throw for over 300 yards. That's just their style of play. It's going to be a track meet. Tennessee is a little bit better, but they still are what they are. They're going to lose.
You got them up there the last game of the season. That's the problem.
Yeah, but they're going to lose 4 or 5 games. They're not very good on offense. So that's
no. I'm not a Tennessee fan, but when I started out the season, I said there's 2 games that concern me. Number 1 besides Georgia, and I said A&M. I think they might lose at A&M. That was my prediction. For whatever reason, it just seemed like it felt like it was tough. Now the other game besides Georgia would worry me would be Tennessee because of where it is on the schedule, the time of year, and so on. So Florida conceivably could have a good year, but only win 7 games. Those are games, as you say, got to win all those games other than Georgia.
Yeah, it just depends on where we sit in the SEC perspective when we go to Knoxville that last game. You know
Think
what I'm saying, buddy?
is everybody going to lose 2 games? Like Urban Meyer says, he's going to lose 2.
No.
I don't,
Alabama's not losing 2 games because the West is down this year, I believe. It's Alabama is clearly the better team over there, and A&M is the second best. But LSU is not the team they've been in the past. Auburn's going to lose. I think South Carolina's going to beat Auburn. South Carolina's a better football team than Auburn.
Really?
So I think South Carolina wins this week. Buddy, so how's the podcast going with Urban? Before you get to that, give us some scoop here, man. I've had my buddies who play for the Texas Longhorns that were teammates of mine in the NFL that have kids on the Texas team texting me Saturday night asking, what do you think about Urban Meyer? Because the word is he's going to be the next Texas football coach.
I haven't heard that. I know that's one of those. He was going to be the Southern Cal coach for a long time. What happened there? Urban has told me privately, and we'll see. And I don't care what people say about him. He's always been straight up honest with me. He never lied to me about anything like that. And what he's told me was, he said, I believe I'm done. I don't really have a desire to do that. He loves his TV job. Now, does that mean if they offer him $10 million, $3 million? I mean, I don't know. Once you get out of the game for a while, you rest up your bones and you think you can do it, you start thinking about it. In my mind, no. And I think that's always going to be the question. Like right now, who's going to be the coach at what school? I mean, look, already Dan Quinn's already been fired. You know, who's the next one to fall in the pros? Texas, by the way, is pathetic. That's just Tom Hartman's a failure, and obviously he's an Urban Meyer guy. But my bottom line is I don't think Urban wants to coach. He's 53, I think it is now, and he's kind of got his belly full of that. He's got a good life right now. And I'm going to ask him, by the way, on the podcast this week, which, by the way, you can get anywhere you pick up your podcast. Terry Bradshaw wore it out last week, too. He was great for almost an hour. And Urban, I'm going to ask him, how exactly did you get to Ohio State? Because a lot of Gator fans still think they were betrayed by him leaving and going. And I know the story. No one believes it. I know the story. I'm going to ask Urban, go on record and tell me, how did you get to Ohio State when you had left Florida and you were in TV and said you weren't going to coach and then you were coaching? That's the question, Urban. And by the way, the podcast is going great. Anywhere you get your podcast, pick it up. It's called The Best Fridays in Football with Urban Meyer, yours truly, and Terry Bradshaw.
At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today, 352-244-0840. What else you got on your list there, buddy, to chat about?
Well, I'm a baseball guy right now. I'm getting excited about watching. I've had fun. I want to talk about this tweet real fast. Brett McMurphy, remember that name?
Yeah.
The guy that did a lot of reporting back in the day on the Ohio State situation, very popular name up in Columbus. But he has a fake account. It's not, he didn't have it. Somebody else has it. And yesterday, about, I don't know, sometime around 2 o'clock or so, there was a tweet came up that said the University of Florida has parted ways with Todd Grantham. And unfortunately, you never know when you first see those things if they're real or not. And the guy who was handling social media at Bleacher Report put it up and announced it. And boy, for about 15 minutes, things were crazy. You know, what's going on? They fired it. Why would Dan do it now? He just had a press conference. Doesn't make sense. I just written a column saying if he's going to fire him, it'd be at the end of the year. If he does, I don't think he will because they've been through too much together. So that tweet set the world afire. In this time of year right now, just like you said about your buddies in Texas, the slightest little provocation on social media about Tom Herman, about Urban Meyer is going to blow up. So watch it. Be careful because a lot of the stuff is fake. So, and I know that's something that we all get trapped into sometime. And remember this too, when you start getting hammered by people on Twitter, like I did over the weekend, look up their number of followers. I had 7,000 hits on that tweet I sent out. And I looked up some of the people and they're like 25 followers, 100 followers, 75 followers. It makes people really give them more power than they deserve because people who tweet are not members of the real media. They're members of the media, all right, but they're not the bona fide, hardworking, honest journalists for the most part who would see that as a bogus story. So be careful about the fake news out there. It's not just in politics. It's also in the college football.
Buddy, I knew you wanted to talk about it. We haven't hit on it yet, and I'm going to keep you a few more minutes till
Sure.
Andy Staples is able to join us. Your thoughts on Dan's comments about the crowd out at College Station?
Well, we talked about it a little bit before the show, and I think it was a bad look for Dan. And I get it, and you get it. It's a coach who's frustrated, who wants everybody to play by the same rules. He looks up, he sees this wad of people at Kyle Field, and you think, I thought we had some regulations here. I don't know how many there were at Kyle Field. It sure seemed like a lot, maybe 40,000 I'm hearing report. Nobody knows for sure. And you think your team's got an advantage because, let's be honest, more people, the defense plays better. That's an emotional part of the game. Anyway, the bottom line was he think that they had an unfair advantage by having those people there. He spoke out about it. I don't think he should have. I think he backed it down a little bit in the press conference yesterday. He did not want to answer the question about what he thought the crowd should be. I think what he's trying to say is, tell me the rules. Let's all play by them, which is what your head ball coach always said. Let's get the rules straight. So I think it's a fuzzy area, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And I think it was very emotional. It doesn't bother me. The guy wants a lot of folks in there because it gives you a home field advantage. I feel like Texas A&M did have a home field advantage, and that's part of playing on the road. We realize that. But regardless of whatever the estimated crowd attendance was announced, it was more than that. Same at Georgia. I do feel like our administration has stuck to that 17,000 because when whether you're at the game, the one game we had at home, or watched it on TV, it looks like about 17,000. The other games look like there's more. We're not going to use those as excuses, but it seems like, okay, if this is what they say you have to do, let's stick to it. And I can see where he's upset with that. But hopefully, our 17,000 can make it as loud as possible for LSU coming in because, here's a crazy thing, buddy. I don't know if you know this. You've been covering college football for a long time. I heard this, and you can correct me if it's right or wrong. There's never been a defending national champion in college football start the season 1-3.
Yeah, I heard that. I didn't look it up, but it's amazing. And I tell you what, LSU's not going to go easy. That's going to be a tough game for Florida because of that. When you get your back up, and LSU's got his back up, and they want their defensive coordinator. He's in more trouble than Grantham out there to Bayou. Golding is a guy, not Golding. What's his name? Forgotten.
Pelini.
Pelini maybe been a mistake bringing him back. He wasn't that great a coach to begin with, but obviously that's not going well. And you're right. No, I've never heard of that happening, and I don't know that it'll happen this week. But I'm probably going to pick Florida. But back to the thing about the crowds, aside from the size of the crowds, is the spacing. There's no social distancing at Georgia, apparently, if you look at that. The swamp is a swamp because people being on top of you. You played there. One of the things all the players and coaches said is that getting right down on top of you like they did in the swamp, getting those people in your, like Mullen said, it seemed like there were 50,000 people behind the bench at Kyle Field. So the spacing is an issue. The crowd's an issue. But in the end, you can't worry about the crowd. Get the job done. Get the defense fixed. Don't turn the ball over. And you ought to win 7, maybe 8 of your games. I think that's where Mullen is right now.
All right, buddy. Well, I will be on the Buddy Martin Show this evening.
Yes.
Looking forward to it. We're going to take a time out here, and then we're going to be joined by our man, Andy Staples. Buddy, good stuff this morning, my man. We'll talk to you tonight.
Thank you, Shane. Look forward to it.
That's Buddy Martin. You can follow him on Twitter at Buddy Show. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We're the largest community bank in the state of Florida, and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Center State Bank, member FDIC. Going to take a time out here. When we come back, we'll be joined by Andy Staples. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning.
Hey Gator Nation, this is your former head ball coach Steve Spurrier. Check out our show, Inside the Huddle with Shane Matthews and Steve Russell, every Tuesday during football season on 8:50 a.m. and 98.1 FM WRUF at 10 o'clock a.m.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility.
Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your rug cleaning services.
Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte.
Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Dar Shakow Insurance, Pomodoro Cafe,
Big Mills Cheesesteaks,
MB Listing, Cornerstone Financial, McDonald's Gainesville, My IT Masters, Gainesville Neon and Signs, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie, Chick-fil-A on Archer Road, Aver and Smith Personal Injury Attorneys, Orange Theory Fitness, PRP Regeneration Specialist, and Dowling Signs.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration Points, where the Gators go to celebrate, with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Tommy Hilfiger, Hotel Indigo, Nike, Medici's, Regal Cinemas, and coming spring of 2021, the HBC's new restaurants, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, and Visor's Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators come to celebrate. We're now going to go to the Titan MRI Hotline, and we're joined by our good friend, Andy Staples from The Athletic. Good morning, Andy. How are you?
What's up, Shane?
Talking about Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. You and I were fortunate enough to be a part of the taste testing. Pretty good food, my man.
Yeah, I like the shrimp and grits, and that jalapeno burger is real good. So I'm ready. They need to get the thing open. The rooftop looks good because there will be a roof on the rooftop bar, but it will be open air. So you won't get rained on, and you won't have the sun just beating down on you. Just be able to sit out there, enjoy the breeze, enjoy a beer. I'm down for that.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a great place, and hopefully the HBC will give his former players a free tab. We'll work on that.
Well, that is a great idea. Also, there's going to be a fancy podcast recording studio in there.
Yes,
so
there is.
I know you'll be doing some shows from there. I may just have to borrow that for my show every once in a while.
No doubt. And that show is the Andy Staples Show, and it is a good one for sure. All right, Andy, you as let's put your orange and blue glasses on right now as a former player here at the University of Florida. It is what it is. I talked on many shows back in August. I was fortunate to get to see two of the scrimmages. Being a parent, that's all that was allowed there. And what stood out to me, and I said our defensive line was going to be an issue, and I was hoping I was wrong, but that is the biggest issue on this football team. What do you see?
I'm with you, Shane. I mean, Texas A&M's offensive line has been pretty maligned over the years. It's actually a group that has played together for a long time, and that was their best game on Saturday, and probably a lot of it was because they weren't playing Alabama, they weren't playing LSU. The D-line they were playing against was something they could handle, and you saw how well they protected Kellen Mond. You saw how well they picked up blitzes. You saw how they pushed Florida around in the run game in the second half. I mean, really, once Jimbo Fisher figured out that they could do what they wanted to on the ground, that was pretty much it for Florida's defense. And so I think that's one of those things that I'm not sure there's much you can do to scheme around that, because, you can play as well as you can in the secondary. You can cover well. Linebackers can fill. They can fit gaps. But the problem is, if the D-line is getting blown off the ball, or if they're not getting pressure, there are going to be issues. And that's a problem when you play a team like LSU this week, when you have Georgia down the road. So I think they're going to have to win some shootouts. I think that may be the character of this team. That may be what this team does. And offensively, they have everything going for them. So I just think Florida fans need to accept that for this team to be successful, it's gonna need to win those shootouts like they played on Saturday and didn't win.
Yeah, and people ask me all the time, what can we do? And the more I thought about it, because I personally think we have a really good secondary. I know people are down on Marco Wilson, but Marco Wilson had great coverage on majority of those throws, and you got to tip your hat to Kellen Mond and the receivers for making good throws and catches.
Well, that's the thing. A&M has good receivers, and I feel awful for Caleb Chapman because they've been waiting for him to break out for 2 years now. He missed his freshman year with an injury. He didn't do that much last year, and that was the game where he finally broke out. And, of course, he tears his ACL on that touchdown catch. But A&M has some very talented receivers, and Kellen Mond, when you give him time, can put the ball anywhere you want him to. So that was the thing. He had time. You can blame Marco Wilson all you want, but there aren't many DBs that can cover a good receiver for 6 or 7 seconds. That's that's asking a lot.
Yep. And, I try to tell the Gator fans, look, when Trask makes a great throw or Pitts makes a great catch, that's good offense. Well, the other teams can have good offense too. So
exactly. Just look at Alabama. I mean, they gave up 48 points. They gave up over 600 yards, but they won because they scored 63 or 65, I think, and gained 723 yards. So that just may be what the SEC is this year, except, and this is the problem for Florida. The one game that felt conventional last weekend was Tennessee-Georgia, and Georgia's defense just boa constricted Tennessee in the second half. I mean, you think about it. Remember, one of Tennessee's touchdowns was a gift from the Georgia offense. So that's the problem for Florida is their main competition in the East is Georgia. Georgia's still playing great defense. Now we'll see how good it is because that Alabama offense that they're going to play this week is outstanding. Mac Jones is great. Najee Harris had 5 touchdowns the other day. But I do think Georgia's defense is the best in the SEC. So that will be a game where Florida's defense is going to have to do something different. They're going to have to be better than they have been. So I don't know what that means, if it means digging down, finding something different or doing something different. I really don't know. Shane, I've been hearing a lot of complaints about Todd Grantham. I'm not sure what he can do differently schematically because of the stuff we've just been talking about. You can't scheme bigger. You can't scheme to have a difference-making defensive tackle who blows up plays. That doesn't happen. Now, I wonder if with Kyrie Campbell coming back, will that help having some more depth, maybe not getting as gassed in the second half? It always helps to have somebody else who can play, and this is a starter quality defensive tackle who's been out, who should be playing this week. So maybe that makes a difference, and we'll see.
So we do think Kyrie Campbell's going to be suiting up and putting his hand on the ground.
That is what
today?
Dan Mullins said. So I'm just going by what the head coach said.
Yeah. All right, so Andy, you follow the Gators, but you have to have a perspective of all college football. I love watching college football, and I try to tell these people, nobody is playing defense, and we do have a great offense. As great as Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts and our receivers are having, we're like middle of the road in the SEC on offense right now because Mac Jones and the Ole Miss offense is just Matt Corral. They're having unbelievable years. You being a former offensive lineman, and I think the rules are set up for offenses to be successful. A, you can't touch the quarterback anymore. Guys are scared to rush the quarterback. B, you can't really get physical as a DB with the receiver in press coverage. Then when the ball's in the air, DBs are afraid to attack the receiver because of targeting. They're going to get thrown out of the game. And then offensive linemen can go downfield now with all the RPO stuff. It is almost nearly impossible to play defense.
Yeah, the offensive lineman being allowed to go 3 yards down the field, I think, is the most difficult thing for the defense to deal with. In the NFL, they can only go 1 yard down the field, and that's why you don't see as much of this stuff in the NFL. But college, they like scoring, so they had the opportunity to change that rule, and they didn't change it. So I was watching. I did a story today on what Ole Miss is doing to stress defenses, and I was watching them, and their linemen are actually pretty good about it. They're not 5-6 yards down the field like you see some other offensive lines doing. They're pretty much sticking at 3, but it doesn't matter because if you're a safety and you're trying to read what's going on and you see them blocking an outside zone and you see a guy getting into the second level onto a linebacker 3 yards down the field, well, guess what? You're read and run. You're coming downhill. So there's going to be somebody zooming by you and they're going to throw in the ball. And that's just, it's really set up for the defense to fail at this point. And listen, there's a reason for that. We don't like the 3-2 Mississippi State Auburn game. Everybody complained when Alabama and LSU played the 9-6 overtime game. People may complain about the really high scoring games, the super high scoring games, but people don't tend to not complain about 42-35. They're like, "Ooh, that was a fun game." So viewers want that, whether they admit it or not. They want it a lot more than they want 3-2 and 9-6. So I don't think they're going to be changing the rules to help the defense anytime soon.
Yeah, it's so funny because I not only do my show here, but when I do the call-in shows with Steve Russell, for all these years, people were like, we have a great defense. We need an offense. Well, now we have a good offense, but we can't play defense. No, you can't keep everybody happy. When you were watching Ole Miss, because they go so fast, I think Matt Corral is the perfect fit for that system. The little slot receivers having a phenomenal year. Do you think Lane can build that program where they can be competitive? And the reason I say that is because, everybody talks about, Lane's a riverboat gambler, goes for it on fourth down all the time. But to me, as just putting myself in his shoes, Ole Miss is not expected to beat Alabama. They're not expected to beat LSU. So you can coach a little bit different than if you were on the other sideline because, hey, if we go for it, we onside kick it here, we don't get it, it's no big deal. We're not expected to win the game. I feel like that's how Ole Miss is going to be from now on under Lane. I think they're going to be exciting and they're going to take chances, but they're not going to win any of the games.
It's going to be boom and bust. But here's the thing. If they can get some talent on the defensive line, especially, but really upgrade their talent on defense in general, you put the 2014 or 2015 Ole Miss defense with this offense, and that's a team that might have a chance to win the SEC West, to be honest. I don't know if they would. They probably drop a game or two, but that team could compete in the SEC. I mean, it would be a really tough team to beat. So that's the thing they've got going is they're going to be able to recruit offensive players because you watch that offense. I mean, if you're a tight end and you watch Kenny Yeboah against Alabama and didn't say that's the offense I want to play in, you're insane. So I think they're going to have no problem recruiting offensive players. The question is, can they get guys on defense? Because if they can, and the thing is, being in Mississippi with the Mississippi Junior College system, there's a chance you can get lucky and hit on some D linemen and hit on some corners, hit on some safeties. And all of a sudden you've got a good defense and not a one you have to build and develop, but one you got very quickly. So I think they could be okay over the next few years. Now, the thing is, if you get the reputation as the team that has the great offense with the horrific defense, then you become almost like some of those Big 12 teams where defensive guys just don't want to go there because they're like, I don't want to practice against that. I don't want to deal with that. They don't put defensive guys in the NFL. But at the moment, they're still new enough to say, hey, give us a chance. And if they hit on a couple good defensive players, especially difference makers on the D-line, all of a sudden, that's a pretty rough team to deal with. Think about it, Shane. Think about if they got like 2 more stops against Alabama the other night. Yeah. I mean, that's a crazy game. So that's really going to be Lane's challenge over the next year or two is can he upgrade the talent on defense? Because it's not going to be that easy, especially, I mean, think about it. If you're recruiting against LSU, Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, these are teams that have put a lot of defensive players in the league in the last few years. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to turn that down. So they're going to have to unearth some gems, but if they can, I'd be scared to play them.
All right, Andy, let's talk about the big game in the SEC coming up this week. Alabama is hosting Georgia. Your initial thoughts? I mean, we're on Tuesday of game week. What do you see happening in this game?
I see a lot lower score than the Alabama-Ole Miss game, and I think Alabama's defense is going to look a lot better than they did against Ole Miss. I mean, here's the other thing about the Ole Miss offense. This is the first time most teams in the SEC are seeing that kind of offense. It's based on the old Art Briles Baylor offense, and teams in the Big 12 have seen it. Teams in the American have seen it with Philip Montgomery at Tulsa, and then Jeff Levy, who's at Ole Miss now, was at UCF the last couple of years. So teams in other leagues have seen it. There just hasn't been the ACC. You see it at Syracuse. You saw it at Florida State last year. You don't see that in the SEC. So I have a feeling once they've gone through it a couple times, defenses will have a little better idea how to deal with it. There's nothing Georgia does that Alabama hasn't seen. So then it comes more down to physical one-on-one matchups. Now, I will say the fact that Ole Miss's offensive line held up against Alabama and blocked pretty well. There were some situations, obviously, where Alabama had superior talent and just won one-on-one matchups, but not as many as you'd think in a game like that. And so that's going to be interesting to see how Alabama's defense handles that big physical Georgia offensive line, because outside of the first half against Arkansas in the season opener, Georgia's offensive line has been able to push people around. And, they pushed Auburn around really good. And Auburn is pretty talented up front. It's not like they're bad up front. They've got NFL guys on their front four. So that's the Georgia O-line versus Alabama D-line is really where I'm looking, because if Georgia can control that, I think Georgia can win this game. If Alabama can get to Stetson Bennett, can disrupt him a little bit, then it'll be a really good game. And I'm also fascinated to see Alabama's offense against Georgia's defense, because, Shane, if you think about it, the only offense that's really been able to score on these guys, because it's all basically the same guys as last year, the only offense that's been able to score on these guys was that LSU team last year. Well, that LSU team last year was the best offense in college football history. So is Georgia's defense that good that you have to be the best offense in college football history to score on them? I don't know, but this Alabama offense is really, really good. I mean, Mac Jones is having a great year. He'll be tested like he hasn't been, but I think, you've seen that Mac Jones is not just a placeholder. It's not, Tua's gone, we're going to have this guy hang out till Bryce Young's ready. Mac Jones is their quarterback. He's going to be their quarterback, and he's going to put up some really big numbers. The question is, can he do it against an elite defense? Because Georgia's defense is as good as any he'll face. If they can handle Georgia's defense, it means they'll be okay against Clemson's defense, against Ohio State's defense. So that's the big test. These two teams, Shane, honestly, this could be the first of 3 meetings between these two teams. Think about it that way. They could wind up playing again in the SEC championship game and again in the playoff, because I'm not super confident a Big 12 team is going to make the playoff. I'm not super confident a Pac-12 team is going to make the playoff. I am pretty confident Ohio State will, and I'm pretty confident that Clemson will. But you could have 2 teams out of the SEC this year. That's the definite possibility, and it could be those 2.
Yeah, having said that, I feel like A&M, now, the way the year's gone, it's crazy. Teams are being upset, but A&M, the hard part of their schedule is pretty much done. I see them possibly going 9-1. Could they sneak into the playoff?
Maybe, but the way they lost to Alabama was not going to help. And I'm not sure that team is going to be able to be that consistent. We saw on Saturday what A&M looked like at its absolute best offensively. There's never been anything in Kellen Mond's career to suggest that that's going to happen multiple times in a row. He's had some great games. He had a great game against Clemson his sophomore year. He had a great game against Alabama his freshman year, but then hasn't really been able to repeat those. And their 4-game finishing kick with Auburn and LSU, it's not the easiest thing in the world. So I think they should be 5-1 after their first 6. Their next 3 are very winnable. And then after that, we'll see what they are, because if they perform like they did on Saturday against those last 4 opponents, they can beat them all. But I just have not seen that kind of consistency out of Texas A&M, under Jimbo Fisher or really ever. So that's the issue for them.
A few more minutes here with Andy Staples from The Athletic. You can follow him on Twitter at Andy_Staples. Okay, so you're a Heisman Trophy voter?
I am.
Okay, so whatever today is, Tuesday, October 13th, I guess you're allowed to say this. I know you can't tell us who you actually vote for, but how would your vote go right now after 3 weeks of SEC play and 5 weeks of ACC play?
Well, the thing is, I don't know yet, because the Big Ten hasn't played yet. I mean,
let's say
Justin Fields fit into this conversation?
Right. Let's just say who's playing right now.
The hard thing for me, like if I'm picking a Clemson player, am I picking Trevor Lawrence or Travis Etienne? That's really tough, because Etienne is so important to what they do on the ground and in the air. It's almost I feel like they're going to split votes because Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback in college football. I mean, you put him anywhere, he's gonna throw for a ton of yards. And by the way, pretty unbelievable flex by Clemson to just throw DJ Uiagalelei in the game against Miami and be like, hey, we're going to split Trevor out wide. So he's essentially playing 10 on 11 here. And here's what you got to deal with when Trevor leaves. So
he's a big joker.
But yeah, so Trevor Lawrence or Travis Etienne. And I think I'd probably go with Trevor because you cannot, he's the one guy you really cannot replace if you're them. So he would be up there. And Mac Jones and Najee Harris, you have the same issue. I'd probably go with Mac because he's just been consistent over those first 3 games. And it's hard not to vote for a quarterback because they affect the game on every single play. That's why I've always said if a defensive player is ever going to win it, it's going to be one of those D tackles that just blows up plays from the inside out like Ndamukong Suh in 2009, because you have to be able to single-handedly affect the game a lot. And that's where it's hard if you're an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman or a defensive player at all, is you don't necessarily affect every single play. And so that's why the quarterbacks will get more love in this scenario. But, shoot, the way Matt Corral's playing, watch him. Now, they got to win some more games because we all know the Heisman Trophy goes to the quarterback or running back on a really good team, not necessarily the best player in the country. But Matt Corral has been fantastic for Ole Miss this year. They thought, okay, he's the guy who doesn't run as well. John Rice Plumlee's the runner, and they figured they'll switch him out and every once in a while throw Plumlee in there. Matt Corral runs about as well as anybody. I mean, he can move. And you saw that against Alabama. There were some plays where, he's pulling the ball down and going like, 15, 20 yards. So I think he's one that you got to watch.
Yeah, I agree. All right, last thing for you. Who wins Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, LSU?
Okay, so Alabama, Georgia, I was going to say Alabama until last week. But you know what? I'm going to ride with that Georgia defense and say Georgia wins a squeaker. For Florida, LSU, I think it goes into overtime with a score of about 56-56, and Florida pulls out. No, I think Florida wins in a shootout against LSU.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Andy, let everybody know how they can listen to your podcast and you're on Sirius XM, all that good stuff.
All right, so the Andy Staples Show, you can get it wherever you get podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We're pretty much everywhere. I'm on Twitter at Andy_Staples, and I link to pretty much everything I do. You want to find what I write, you can go to theathletic.com. We have a deal running right now where it's $1 a month for your first year. It is the best deal going. We got 400 sports writers covering every single thing in the world of sports, and we have the deepest college football coverage. Alan Taylor, our new Gators beat writer, he's just started on the job. He's having fun, enjoying life in Gainesville, Florida. So it's a great deal. So go to theathletic.com and get signed up.
Good stuff, my man. We'll have you on next month sometime. Appreciate it. Be safe out there, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you, Shane.
All right. That's Andy Staples. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. This Day in Sports is brought to you by Area Rug Masters, Gainesville's most trusted area rug cleaners with free pickup and delivery. Area Rug Masters is the convenient way to keep the focal point of your room looking brand new. Call Area Rug Masters at 352-448-5999. 1982, the IOC Executive Committee approves the reinstatement of Jim Thorpe's gold medals from the 1912 Olympics. That's brought to you by Area Rug Masters. Really want to thank Buddy Martin for joining us today, and Andy Staples taking time, giving us his thoughts on college football and the SEC. It's crazy times. He picks the Georgia Bulldogs to beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. I can't wait for that game. Hopefully the Gators can slow down the passing attack that LSU is going to roll into here. They're even though they lose Joe Burrow and all those other guys, man, they still can throw the football. They just have trouble stopping folks. Make sure you follow and like us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Today's show's a wrap brought to you by Wrap Spot. See you tomorrow, folks. Take care.
This is Shane Matthews. Thank you for listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning. You can also check me out on Inside the Huddle with Steve Russell and the head ball coach Steve Spurrier. Tune in every Tuesday during football season on WRUF 98.1 FM, 8:50 a.m. at 10 o'clock in the morning, or find us on your favorite podcast platform.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility.
Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your rug cleaning services.
Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte.
Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Rap Spot, Okido America, Gators Dockside, Radware, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, TD Financial, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Dar Shakow Insurance,